to moderate what I think is going to be the most entertaining plenary session of the forum. You know, we've all been working pretty hard over the last couple of days in the heady work of alleviating and advancing, of changing and combating, leveraging, mobilizing, financing, and I'd say it's time for some visceral stuff, for some feeding and tickling and touching. So that's what we're going to be doing with this, with a really remarkable group of panelists whom I'm thinking of as intrepid. I hope you will also find them irreverent in their approaches to philanthropy. I'll say just a couple of words about the Skoll Foundation and about Jeff Skoll, who was the first president of eBay and for whose vision the Skoll Foundation was really created. And that vision is very simple. It's to help bring about a more peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. So our strategy for doing that is to work with the change agents on the front lines, the pioneers of social change, the innovators, the people we call social entrepreneurs. You've met all kinds of them at this forum. They're working in spaces where governments are effective and where governments aren't so effective or don't have the resources to do the work they need to do. They're working where markets go and where markets simply won't go. They're working with aid, and they're working often out of frustration and anger with what they see as the waste dependency cycle of some aid. But in addition to investing, and we provide core operating support because we think social entrepreneurs are the best ones to decide where the resources need to be allocated and appropriated, we convene and celebrate. So some of you may have seen Wednesday night a segment of Frontline World that we have underwritten, profiling two great social entrepreneurs, Matt Flannery of Kiva.org, and which is pioneering an online microfinance solution, working in Uganda principally, and a remarkable social entrepreneur bringing music education to Paraguay, creating citizens in Paraguay, Luis Serran, whom we met through our wonderful partners at Avena. But you're probably also thinking, doesn't the Skoll Foundation also make movies? And in fact, we do make movies, but we don't make them on the scale that Jeff Skoll makes them at Participant Productions. So I want you to think about Jeff Skoll's philanthropy as really having two Venn diagrams. They're almost like geared wheels, all intersecting and leveraging one another. So here's really how it works in a nutshell. Jeff sees Al Gore's keynote presentation, and those of you who are Apple folks know the difference between keynote and PowerPoint. He sees the presentation, and he decides to make a film, An Inconvenient Truth, and that turns into the third most successful documentary of all time. So with An Inconvenient Truth, you really build the grassroots, informed citizenry that can start to put the pressure on government to change, to price carbon. I mean, that's what needs to be done. We all know it needs to be done. But that's building the will to get this done. Then the investment group, Jeff's investment group, invests in all kinds of energy entrepreneurs to make sure that there's a pipeline of innovative solutions. So we're invested in electric vehicles, we're invested in biofuels, we're invested in nano-solar. So the investment group then is fueling innovations, working with entrepreneurs. And then the foundation is working with the social entrepreneurs. So we're invested in Mindy Luber, who's bringing the pressure to bear on the institutional investment communities, such that they start to factor carbon risk into their portfolios and into their solutions. And with people like Bunker Roy, who's here, who's got his barefoot solar engineers working all over the world, now moving out of Telonia and India and into Ethiopia and into Bolivia. So bringing solar engineers all over the world. So that's really Jeff's vision of the world. Three prongs: the foundation, participant production, and the investments that the family office does. So it's a great world to be part of, as I'm sure you can imagine. But that's enough about us. It's really time to turn to our great panel, and I'd like to ask my four panelists to join me up here on the stage. Here they come. They've finished their ice cream, and they're All right, and Ben Cohen is going to be our first speaker. And we all know Ben really as the emperor of ice cream, as the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's, which he launched in 1977. And he launched Ben & Jerry's as an intrepid entrepreneur with a $12,005 investment. And that $5 was for a correspondence course in ice cream making, which I'm pleased to tell you that the entrepreneur aced. But he made an even more important investment in his belief in community, his belief that goodwill, good times, and good ice cream were a recipe for good business. Now, we've asked Ben to talk about what's on his mind these days and how Ben & Jerry's newest flavor, Stephen Colbert's Americone Dream, expects to take on those left-leaning liberals back in Vermont and restore some balance back to the freezer case. Here to give us the scoop, Ben Cohen.
Thank you. Well, thanks a lot. Good to be here at the home of and the center for what's become known as venture philanthropy, essentially taking a few $1 billion, which is a fair hunk of money, and incorporating business models to use those dollars for direct social benefit. But it seems to me that the problems that are facing our country and our world require hundreds of billions of dollars to remediate the problems. And really, there's only one place where you can find that kind of money, and that happens to be the government of the richest country in the world, the United States. And so what I'd like to talk about a little and give you an example of is what I call venture capital philanthropy. Investing a few $1 million to leverage tens of billions of dollars from the federal government of the United States. I'm the president of Business Leaders for Sensible Priorities. 700 individual business leaders around the country that are working along with our board of military advisors, former admirals, generals, retired Pentagon officials, the former Assistant Secretary of Defense under Reagan, a former CIA director, in order to shift national budget priorities to put more money into social needs at no additional taxpayer expense by reducing expenditures on Cold War weapons systems. It's become clear to us that the impetus for this change is not going to occur inside the Beltway, that it's got to occur outside the Beltway in the grassroots. And so what we're involved in is a lot of public education. And it's become clear to us that, there are some issues that as people get more information about it, they become more and more on your side. And this is one of those examples. And right now, our campaign is focusing in the states of Iowa and New Hampshire in order to inject this issue of national budget priorities into the presidential campaigns that are just starting to unfold there. So what I'd like to do is give you some examples of the public education that we're using. Now, what we're dealing with is the federal discretionary budget. A little hard to get your arms around that, but I brought it here with me today. And this is the federal discretionary budget, the amount of money Congress has available to distribute after mandatory expenses like interest on the national debt and Social Security. As you can see, the Pentagon gets about 50%. Things like the environment, education, healthcare, human services get all these little slices. And essentially what our military advisors are telling us is that we're still spending $60 billion a year on weapons designed to defeat the former Soviet Union, which is no longer around. And that this $60 billion doesn't really help us in terms of today's threats of terrorism. So, this is a difficult problem, and I'd like to kind of give you a demonstration of what could be done with that $60 billion. And, basically I'm just a dessert guy. And when I think about difficult problems, I tend to think about dessert. And it occurred to me that the proper dessert to deal with this particular issue is Oreo cookies. And so what I have here is essentially a bar chart where each Oreo cookie equals $10 billion. And so what I've got here is a stack of 50 Oreo cookies, $500 billion, and that represents the Pentagon budget of the United States, not including the extra $120 billion a year we're spending on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, in comparison to that, I'd like to show you what the federal government is spending on some of these other areas. On education, K to 12, we spend 4 Oreos, $40 billion. On world hunger, we spend 1.5 Oreos, $15 billion. On children's health care, we spend 5 Oreos, $50 billion. On energy independence, that's 1/4 Oreo. On job training, we spend 3/4 Oreo, and on deficit reduction, we spend 0. Now, what we're suggesting is you could take 1 Oreo off the top here, put it on education K to 12, that would be $10 billion a year. Over a period of 12 years, that would be enough money to rebuild and repair every public school in the United States. Take another Oreo off, take another one, split it in half. You've all done this before. Put half on world hunger. That's 1.5 Oreos on world hunger, $15 billion. Believe it or not, that's enough money to provide food self-sufficiency for all of the 6 million children around the world that are dying each year of starvation. Take another Oreo off, put it on children's health care, and that's enough to provide health insurance for every kid in the United States who currently doesn't have any. Take another Oreo off, put it on energy independence, and according to Emory Lovins, at $10 billion a year over 10 years, that's enough to reduce our need for oil by 50% through energy conservation and incentives to manufacture and purchase hybrid vehicles. Take that other half an Oreo, put it on job training. That's enough to provide 250,000 more people a year that are laid off with job training. And take that last Oreo off, put it on deficit reduction, and at least that's a beginning to start reducing the deficit. Now, some people see this demonstration and they say, well, what does that prove? Ben can move around a bunch of Oreos on a chart, but isn't that going to leave us vulnerable to those potential adversaries? Well, today, the countries that spend the most, that are not our allies, are Russia. They spend 6 Oreos. It used to be when our Pentagon budget was this high, that was because we were in this neck-and-neck arms race with the Soviet Union, and they were spending exactly the same amount. But now they're down to 6, and usually they're considered an ally. And then the next potential adversary is actually our major trading partner. That would be China. And the countries that we're so concerned about, Iran, Libya, Syria, North Korea, all together, when you combine their militaries all together, it's a grand total of 1 Oreo, $10 billion. So, as you can see, even after we've taken enough Oreos off here to take care of all these social needs, there's still more than enough to take care of those guys. Now, all right, some people see this, they say, okay, well, maybe. But, we hear that our military doesn't have enough money, our troops are on food stamps, they don't have enough body armor, etc. What exactly are you talking about cutting? And what I'd like to do is give you just one example of one of the weapon systems that we're talking about. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to provide a audio demonstration You don't have to look. You can just close your eyes and listen. It's actually kind of restful. It's after lunch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some BBs into this bucket. And what I want to demonstrate is the size of our nuclear arsenal. You know, the United States continues to spend $20 billion a year on our nuclear arsenal. And I want to show you what we get for that amount of money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some BBs into this container. Here's one BB. That represents the equivalent of 15 nuclear bombs the size of what blew up Hiroshima. Now I'm going to drop in 6 BBs. That would be enough nuclear weapons to blow up all of Russia. And now I'm going to put in the amount of BBs that represents our total nuclear arsenal. That was 10,000 BBs, the equivalent of 150,000 Hiroshima-sized bombs. Now, you know, a lot of people hear this demonstration and they're a little depressed. However, we at the Priorities Campaign see this as an opportunity because our military advisors say that we could afford to reduce the money we're spending on nuclear weapons in half, save $10 billion a year, and still have more than enough nuclear weapons to present a credible deterrent threat and take care of all the security interests of the United States. You're looking at me. What is it? All right. I'll finish up quick here. Well, you know, I know that I've given you a whole lot of information here, and it's a little hard to get your arms around and, you know, really retain it, but we have provided at your tables a pen that has contained within the barrel of the pen all of the information that I just spit out. And if you can't find one at your tables, they're at the registration booth. I'd just like to finish by saying that our country, the last remaining superpower on Earth, needs to learn to measure its strength, not in terms of how many people we can kill, but in terms of how many people we can feed, clothe, house, and care for. Thank you very much.
Great, really great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Who needs dessert when you can have dessert economics? But I think we're ready for a little comic relief. And fortunately, our next speaker is acclaimed British screenwriter and director Richard Curtis, best known as the director of hugely successful Hugh Grant films, Four Weddings and a Funeral and Notting Hill, but more important today is really the founder of Comic Relief, which has raised upwards of $700 million to combat poverty in the UK and in Africa. And Richard also joined forces with Bob Geldof to organize the famous Live Aid concerts, which were designed to and did, in fact, pressure the G8 leaders to commit to making poverty history. And I'd say he arguably got that whole red thing going with Red Nose Day. The first was held in 1988, raised 15 million pounds, and the most recent was just 2 weeks ago. So, Richard.
It's very good indeed to be here. I thought since television and screens is my medium that we might start by just showing you a little bit about what we do in the UK with Red Nose Day. I got involved in all this, strangely enough, because I met a very pretty girl at dinner in 1985 who said she was going to visit a camp in the Sudan during the famine in the north of Africa. And I offered to go with her because she was nervous. And then I went to a... I was very plain. We went to a meeting at Oxfam, and they said they thought it was an excellent idea, but it was a waste of resources. And so I got sent to Ethiopia while she went to the Sudan, and I had no intention of doing anything there. And I just saw, as you can imagine, in the middle of this famine, the most terrible thing, spending my time in many camps where there were 3 huts, one of them was for people who would definitely die that day, the second one for people who might, the third one for people who they thought had a chance of survival. And the thing I was most impressed by was the lack of sentiment in the people who were working there. You had, rough water guys from the north of England who were building wells. They were not weeping about it. They were actually doing the thing they know how to do. And it was the same with nurses. They were not sentimental about it. They were just doing their job. And I felt when I came back to England that what I should try and do is do the job I do, which is make Hugh Grant rich and unhappy, and to try to do stuff on telly that would be funny. And the outcome of that is some of what you're about to see. This is just a little film about Red Nose Day and how it works. Maybe.
Oh, hello. I'm Keira Knightley.
What do you want to be, black or white?
That's not funny, Martin. That's just ignorance.
And now it's kissing time. Dawn French to kiss Hugh Grant here live in the studio with lips. Go for it, Hugh!
You want to stop the Bee Gees singing? We need £5 million very quickly.
Hello, boys and girls.
It's your Uncle here.
I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger if you don't call.
Just call.
Your cash will really, really make a difference. Thank you. How's that?
Street kids sleep, live, and eat on the streets. Kids as young as 6. They have nobody to take care of them, and life can be very, very hard. Since last Red Nose Day, you've helped street kids all over Africa. Let life be like this, not this. Ndwiga is 75 years old. He used to live in the awful, awful slums of Nairobi. Because of cash you raised last Red Nose Day, he now has his house.
He lived in slums for 11 years, right? Moving from sort of slum house to slum house, never had a bed. And when he came here, apparently, he finally felt safe and built himself a bed, which he's really proud of. This is
first bed?
Yeah, first bed.
Eugenie was just 17 when she was raped by a soldier who knew he had HIV. He told her she would die a slow death. Your money paid for proper food, counselling and companionship, and she's received help to get drugs to keep her healthy.
2 years ago, we were thinking Eugenia is going to die. And now she's a beautiful woman. She's not going to die. There is hope and there is possibility.
Now, how often in your life do you get the chance to make a difference like that?
Sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation.
And thank you very much. I suppose what I would say is that we're perhaps an example of sweating our assets. It seems very unlikely that a group of comedians with who would, kill their grandmother for a laugh and with a very minimum social conscience have managed over the years to raise this amount of money and this amount of awareness. And what we've tried to do is to let everybody that we work with do the thing that they are good at. And so the television, we get documentary makers who are good at making documentaries to make the documentaries, comedians to be funny. It's the least polite show on British television every year, our show, because we don't restrain the comedians, and they think, in fact, it's a cracking opportunity to say stuff they would normally not be allowed to say. But what we've tried to do, if I can just explain the structure of how we've developed from what was originally a 7-hour TV show where we really just raised money. What we do now is a third of our money comes in through the phones on the night, prompted by people's emotions about the films that they see. A third comes in through merchandising. I don't know, but I think we sold about 40 million objects last year. Those little red noses that you've got are on sale in Sainsbury's, a huge supermarket chain, and I think we sold 7.5, 8 million of those to children around the country. We sell records, we sell books. I wrote a letter to Jo Rowling a few years ago asking her if she'd donate a signed copy of Harry Potter to an auction, and she wrote back and said what she'd do instead was write 2 new Harry Potter books. And I think we made $17 million from those 2 books, which was from one letter. But that was her doing what she does best. And then the third thing that we do is public fundraising. And the little disc that you've got there is our public fundraising pack this year. And what happens is we send out hundreds of thousands of those to people all over the country. And then children, adults, people in offices do things on Red Nose Day and in the time before it and get sponsored to do stuff. So my little 9-year-old boy this year wore a inflatable sumo costume down Portobello Road, which he loathed, but he got sponsored £47 for doing that. My daughter, who's 11, did a fashion show, which was deeply alarming for her parents. My little boy, Charlie, sprayed his hair red and went to school and paid £1 for the privilege. And I think that, so what we try and do is to take the fact we've got a TV show to get businesses, schools, officers, everybody to do everything they can during a 5-week period. So, and I'm a real believer that, just as Participant has done, that entertainment and media, there's a lot of criticism of, a certain amount of feeling that stars do token things for charitable purposes. But I'm absolutely sure that it's something really worth investing in, because if you spread the news through entertainment and media in a good way, it will, just like an Inconvenient Truth, like Live 8, is able to make a huge amount of difference. Now, I'm very obsessed by the value of $1, as it were. I've been to Africa and seen, that 49-cent blister pack can cure a child who will die if they don't get it. And so I think that it's incredibly important that every dollar gets appreciated and valued. But the thing that shocked me 2 years ago is, in the UK, was the educational and political value of what we'd been doing. In the end, when you've got a situation where watching mainstream media, people from the age of 5 have just come to see that there is a world elsewhere where people really are dying for the lack of $1. It does change their attitude to the world and to their expectation of what they expect the world to be. And I'm now so old that I'm in a position where people who are running as members of parliament were 9-year-olds at school who did Red Nose Day and enjoyed it. And when Make Poverty History campaign started in the UK, we found that there was so much pressure from the public, all of whom were passionate and interested about these issues, that they pushed and drove our government to the Gleneagles Agreement, which eventually added $25 billion to the amount of money that was going to help work in Africa to improve things there. And I suppose that what that did to me is make me feel that it would be impossible to genuinely change things if the greatest and most powerful country in the world, America, did not have an equal passion for these issues. And we did find, I remember hearing President Clinton once say that it wasn't a big subject because there wasn't a vote in it. And I think it's very important that we should all try to get some votes into this issue, to do things, create things, make things popular. From my point of view, I'd just say, let's say the climate change issue. If you could say about climate change, I promise you for sure next year, as a result of global warming, 4 million people will definitely die. The government would put huge resources into it. Well, I tell you, because of health issues, 4 million people and more will definitely die next year of AIDS and malaria, and yet it's treated as a casual issue, which we hope will make slow progress on. So I'm over here in the States at the moment in what has been the most difficult few weeks of my life, trying to get this thing started. And there's just a little glimpse of something that is coming on TV in a few weeks' time here on our second clip.
Welcome back to the show. Tonight is American Idol's 200th episode. We want to thank you. We want to take this opportunity to announce a very special project. You've turned American Idol from what many called a simple talent search into the most watched and most talked about television show in the world. And now we want to give something back. Under the banner, Idol Gives Back. We're going to use the power of this show to raise millions of dollars and bring the issues of extreme poverty, both in Africa and right here in America, into the hearts, minds, and homes of us all.
I'm a tremendous optimist, and I do believe that it is possible to change the world, and I don't think it can be changed without, we have a philosophy in my family which is to make things happen, you have to make things. And I think you have to make products, make entertainment, and I think that that way we will have a huge effect on the world. My little boy Charlie came to me the other day. I asked him what he wanted to do for a living. He's 5. He said that he would like to take care of the poor children, but that he was worried that after Red Nose Day there wouldn't be any poor children left. And I assured him that I thought he was going to be okay. He should put that worry to rest. But I would love to feel that I'll be back in 10 years here, and America will be able to proudly say that it did, before 2015, absolutely tip the access of the world towards the poor, and that people would no longer be dying for lack of a dollar. I do think that's achievable, and I think a forum such as this is the absolute starting point for that achievement. Thank you.
April 24th and 25th, American Idol Gives Back. I'm planning to watch, actually, and I invite all of you to do the same. Our third speaker is someone who makes things happen by making things. She makes things happen with her extraordinary voice and her extraordinary spirit. 4-time Grammy-nominated Benin-born singer and songwriter Angélique Kidjo is described as one of the most electrifying performers in the pop world today, and one of its most forward thinkers as Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF. Her unique style fuses Afro-funk, salsa, gospel, reggae, and jazz with classic American rock, pop, and soul traditions. She once considered, though, a career as a lawyer and a human rights lawyer, but she put down her law texts and she took up what she told us last night was her mass weapon, her weapon of mass loving. And so I thank her very much for taking up that weapon and for being the remarkable human rights singer that she is.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. When I was growing up in Africa and I started singing with my mother, I was 6 years old in her theater group. She was a choreographer and a theater director. I was just having fun thinking that one day I might be able to be a lawyer. And I decided that law doesn't serve most of the time my purpose of justice, that we can twist law to any kind of thing we want to say, but not for justice most of the time. And then I drop it and grab my microphone, travel all around the world, meet wonderful people, and meet also the needed people. One thing I've learned from the traditional musician in my country is that music is not only entertaining, it also carries messages. And also one thing that they taught me when I was asking questions, because I was misquestioned when, why, and how, I never stopped, was to ask them, why do we always sing those very important issues on a very uplifting beats where people dance on it? And my uncle, my older uncle, told me, if you want people to move, if you want people to make changes in their lives and other people's lives, you can't make them feel guilty. Guilt does not create anything positive. It just keeps you in the position where you are without you moving ahead for nothing. And I've been called up by UNICEF to be a Goodwill ambassador since 4 years now. And I've been doing a lot of work with UNICEF, traveling back to my continent to places I've never been before. And what is very hard for me to deal with is to see those children in need and to see also I would say, the coldness of the leaders of the countries in Africa that are not willing to do anything because they are comfortably being paid by the rich country and financing the corruption for them not to do anything. I mean, when you have oil and you're giving money not to do anything, to put some of the subsidies of that money into the country to create school or health system or help your own people, why should you do so? So for me, basically, if we want the corruption to stop in Africa, the rich country have to stop giving money to our leaders. Any investor that invests money somewhere wants to see return on that investment. But so far, throughout the year, our leaders have been corrupted, and none of the money comes back to the people of the country, and none of the money comes back really to help our people, but the rich country always have the best part of it. As a singer, traveling all around the world with my voice and singing, I've met wonderful human beings that has asked me most of the time, how can we help? How can we make things move? And most of the time, people don't know where to start. And I tell people, you have to start in your home and your neighbors. It's not only in Africa you can help, because poverty is everywhere. And most of the time, I see people coming to me and said, your music have bring us to realize that Africa is not a country, but a continent, and we are willing to help. How can we help? Yesterday here, I told you that joy is one thing that I can give because I was raised in a family where every problem have always been discussed, and we always find a solution to it because we take it lightly, and we find a way to find solution to it. Most of the time, a lot of things are done to help African people, but without the African people being present. Live Aid, for example, you cannot help us without bringing us on board. You have to give us the voice for us to tell you what we need. How can we be partner in the help that you are willing to give us? Africa is not only about poverty. It's not only about diseases. It's not only about our children dying. It's also about people that are willing to help. So, as an African person, I grew up in a poor family, but yet they gave me the sense of dignity. You can be poor and still be a human being with dignity and value. So here we are talking about philanthropy, but where are we standing, we African people ourselves, when it comes to take decisions that will jeopardize or that will change our life without us having a say into it? I don't mind anything done to help my people, but please think about us as human beings before thinking about our poverty and our needs. We are human beings with brain. We can speak for ourselves. Thank you. Let us show our brain. We are not only poor people. My music helped me to bring that message to the people. Please, get us on board. We will help you more for the dollar to be more efficient in every way, because if we are not part of it, if our media cannot relate what you are doing to the people that felt left alone every day, then the help that you're giving to the people means nothing because they don't know. They just feel like, oh, here comes another help to come and dump money on us and give us this and give us that. Is that all we are? Can we speak a little bit with you guys and find out how we can make this happen? Please don't forget that you are talking to human beings, and we need to be heard, and we need to be part of it. Thank you.
A powerful woman, Angélique. Finally, we have Bobby Shriver, co-founder with Bono and chairman of Data, co-founder again with Bono of Product Red, an economic initiative designed to create a sustainable funding stream derived from a portion of product profits, and he has quite a kit here to show us to the Global Fund. And here he is, the Santa Monica Council member who won with the widest majority ever. So Bobby Shriver.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to go pretty quickly because I understand President Clinton is in the House somewhere. But the real reason I got into this, of course, was so I could be introduced as Bono's partner. Most of my life, I was been introduced as, when I was a little kid, I was the son of the nephew of President Kennedy. And my dad got famous for starting the Peace Corps, so I was Sergeant Shriver's son. My mom got famous for starting the Special Olympics, so I became Eunice Shriver's son. And then in a big competitive family, a very bad thing happened, which is that my little sister became the host of the CBS Morning News, and therefore a national figure, and we all became Maria Shriver's brothers. And then a really unthinkable thing happened. Speaking of the entertainment business, he was a guy who used to go to the gym, and next thing we knew, we were all inevitably and forever Arnold Schwarzenegger's brothers-in-law. So being Bono's partner looked pretty good to me. Not sure. I spent a lot of time in England on where we launched Red. I'm not sure about the red noses. I don't know. As the American Irish, I'm always a little afraid that the English are trying to get those on our noses to make us look silly again. Anybody else feel that way? I do love Richard, though. He's a star and of the highest order in the world we're all working in. I don't know about all of you, the Americans here, but Ben's talk made me really mad. And I remember asking my mom about 10 years ago why she started the Special Olympics. She had a special sister, and I thought maybe it came out of her relationship with her sister, which I'm sure it did in part. And she actually said no. She started because she was enraged. And she was enraged when she lived in Chicago where I was born, a little kid, but go to institutions and seeing the way mentally challenged people lived. She got really, really mad. And I, coming from the worker, make programs really side of the Kennedy family, the Shrivers, I've found that getting mad is really a good thing. You got to really get pissed about the kind of things that Ben showed us. It's just so frustrating. And I know that's what you're all doing by being here. I know that's why we started Data, which is our political lobbying activity. Bono and I, data.org, for those of you who don't know it, where we lobby in London and Berlin now and in Washington. We have another entity called One, which is a political organizing event, which our board member, the great Sheryl Sandberg, is here. And this Red venture came out because we had worked a lot on the Global Fund when it came into being. And although it was billed as a public-private partnership, as I'm sure many of you know better than I do, there was a little bit of difficulty in getting the private sector money to go in there. Even though Richard and his team were working their cans off, the money wasn't coming forward. So we thought, Bono and I actually met doing a Christmas record, if you can believe it, for the Special Olympics called A Very Special Christmas in 1987, which has a mother and child drawing by Keith Haring on the front of it. We had U2 and Madonna and Whitney Houston, et cetera, sing Christmas songs, Bruce Springsteen. And we thought, you know what, we need to do that. We can't go and ask these companies for money. It's not going to work. We need to create a brand. So we spent about a year trying to come up with what would the brand be, what would it be called, and what would it mean. We came up with the idea of Red. Red is for emergency. It's for, we got to get to work on this right now. We can't treat it, as Richard was saying, as something that's just sort of happening. It has to be done right now. And we also then developed this thing. I'm sorry, I don't have a fancy presentation with slides and stuff, which we called the Embrace. So this logo, we hope in 20 years will be as well known as the Nike swoosh or the Google logo, and people will know what it means when they see one of these very brave companies, of the 5 companies who joined us to start this, American Express, Motorola, Gap, Emporio Armani, and Converse. Oh, great, that shows up there, terrific. I didn't even know that, that's great. There they are, that's the way it looks. And of course, the idea is that it rises to the power of red when you put the company's name in the center there. And these are just some of the products. Obviously, I'm wearing all of the products. Partnered. This is done by Richard's brother-in-law, the very brilliant Matthew Freud, who advised us in the UK, this excellent book. These companies, and I'll just show you one other thing, which I decided to bring up when I was listening to Angélique. When we were talking to Motorola, and we're going to launch this thing in England where we launched all the products, we said, gee, you know, even though it's not part of the red DNA that things are made in Africa, because we were trying to raise money for Richard, we thought, you know, Gap was making a lot of its products in Africa. God bless them. They have a very big factory in Lesotho and have been there for many years. We thought we'd ask Motorola, what could you guys make? And they said, well, you know, we can't make a cell phone. We have a giant factory in China. Then I was looking and I said, well, what about that box? And the head of Motorola was there with his lawyer, and his guy said, what do you mean the box? I said, well, the box, it comes in a box. What about the box? Could you make the box there? And he said, I don't know. And he said to this guy, he said, where do we make the boxes? And the guy goes, I don't know. He says, well, find out where we make the boxes. 2 weeks later, they called us up and they said they had found via a consultant a company in Lesotho that could make the boxes. And they sent some capital equipment down there, and this is all on the Red website, incidentally, if anybody would like to go look at joinred.com. And these are the photos of these human beings in their houses. They employ 90 people making these boxes for Motorola. Of course, they have Motorola cell. Oh, great, I keep forgetting to show this thing. So there's here's the lady standing, yeah, there we go, with her boxes that she makes for these cell phones. So this is a thing where large American companies, or for that matter, large European or other companies, who have enormous amount of money flowing through their cost of goods, cost of marketing goods, that's really untouched by traditional philanthropy, the traditional asking of money from foundations, the receiving of money and putting that to work, and all the innovative ways you guys are all doing. We thought we're going to get into that stream of money, the making of the boxes, the running of the ads, which everybody's doing anyway, as you all know, and try to hook a little of that money, infiltrate it a little bit, and hook it over into products that will be branded. These are actually made from cloth from Mali, the shoes up here from what's called mud cloth, made by Converse in China, but the textile is actually from Africa. We're going to try to get into that money and move that advertising and get the creative people. This shoe idea came from a guy at Converse. These ideas were all designed by the Gap people. Bono and I, this watch designed by Giorgio Armani. We didn't come up with these ideas. The creative people in these private sector companies did. And they're part of this work. They're not functioning in a traditionally philanthropic way, but they're willing to work hard on things when you give them something that's inspiring for them to do. The people who we've worked with in the company's Gap, unbelievable. They got so excited, they formed special teams. There's competition now within the companies to work on these red teams that are designing the products, marketing them, and advertising them. So we're hopeful that'll be a success. I think I just made a Ben and Jerry's deal at the table. I hope that the page he signed will be enforceable in a court of law. If not, Joe Sorello, who's sitting with me from the Gates Foundation, is going to figure out something to do about it. It's a risky venture. The other thing I would just say to you is that several companies who we asked to be part of this said no. I think that's important to understand. They felt that healthcare in Africa wouldn't attract Americans. They felt that they didn't want to risk their brand, their base business. A lot of people said, look, you know, we'll do a little thing over here for you, but we won't do that for you. Let's see. Here we go. There we go. That's the base brand. It's not the British Airways American Express card. It's not the such and such American Express. It's the American Express card, what they call this guy the Centurion. And it even says on the back of it, if you can believe it, it's too small to print to put up there, but it says, this card is designed to eliminate AIDS in Africa. So we got them, and it has the logo and so forth. We got them. This is the best-selling cell phone device, in the history of the cell phone business. So we didn't want to be on the sideline. We wanted to be right in the middle. And a lot of companies turn that down. They don't believe it will work because they don't believe that people, Americans or other people, will buy these products based on this brand. They don't think that will work. So I hope you guys will prove them wrong. I hope you'll come on the website and give us ideas about new products, which we solicit from people and new companies that we will be working on it. We're working with Richard on Idol. We got Bono editing Vanity Fair in June. We have the great Oprah Winfrey doing her show again for us in October, which is she called "What Did You Guys Do with the Money Show?" The first show, she was like, okay, yeah, we're going to help you announce it. We're going to go shopping on Michigan Avenue, but you got to come back here in 1 year. And we said, well, great, we're going to come back. What do you think the theme of that will be? She goes, what did you two do with the money? So we said, great, Richard Feacham, he's responsible for the money. But so that will come. We've even, if you can believe it, been approached by Sports Illustrated to turn their bathing suit issue red. And I've assigned Richard Curtis to personally manage that. So people pitch us ideas all the time, and we try to come up with ones that we think will earn money for the fund, that will be fun for people to buy, things that people will desire, and that will be consistent with the other partners that we have involved. So that's it. I welcome, maybe after the president or outside, people to look at these products. Welcome any ideas from any of you. I want to have my colleague Tamsin Smith, who's the president of Red, raise her hand. She came to us from the Gap. She lives here in San Francisco. Raise your hand, Tamsin. No one can see you. There you are. That's the Red story. Thank you all very much.
Well, actually, I think our aspirations have been fulfilled. It's been an amazing panel. And we didn't think we were going to have any time, but we actually do have some time now for questions. So we'll open it up to all of you. We've had an amazing lesson in priorities with Oreos. We've been reminded that being true to how we make things and letting people do what they do best is really a key to success in philanthropy. Partnership of equals. Angélique's really a powerful reminder of what those power dynamics should mean at the grassroots level, and then how getting mad can turn into an embrace with Bobby's wonderful reminder with the Red campaign, how all of us are really, as Bill Faggy said this morning, in this together. Questions from all of you? Yes, there.
Hi, my name is Nathan Gray with Earth Train. Many years ago with Oxfam America, we engaged a movie star by the name of Rama Rao in something we were doing after the cyclonic disasters of the late 70s. The impact that gentleman had, and his image simply appeared on a poster, was staggering. My question to any one of you is, what are you doing to engage these extraordinarily popular third world movie stars, obviously the movie stars of India, but of Mexico, Colombia, that could have so much impact? What are you doing to seduce them into the cause? Thank you.
Anyone like to take that?
I'm going to follow your lead now. I mean, it's absolutely true that we haven't done that. And it is a complicated thing because, I mean, we had this issue over Live 8. There was an argument of not having enough African musicians on it. And it is a tricky thing because, on the one hand, you're trying to appeal to your prime time audience in your own country. But on the other hand, you can't, do it without the involvement of the countries involved. And I think that is an important part of the next step. And I know that we're doing a lot in India, particularly Richard Gere has been very keen on and getting all of Bollywood involved so that people actually know that it's not coming from the outside, it's coming from inside. But I think that is a very important, lesson and message and thing that we should do.
Can I add one thing to that? We can only educate the people in America or in Europe by trying to bring those artists from those countries to the media. Introduce them, and people know their face, and they know what it is about. And I can assure you that people that are giving them money, knowing that where the money is going, the star of their country are part of it. Because people that does those events tend to forget is that we have a voice in our country, in our continent, that people listen to differently than anyone that can come in and speak for us. So once you put us there and explain to the public, the prime media, prime audience excuses for me is kind of funny. Because if they don't want to watch it, so be it. The people that want to sit and watch it are the people that you want to have on board. It's not the people that are just looking for the entertainment for the sake of it. But bring the artists from India, from Latin America, from Africa there, and give them a platform of 1 or 2 minutes for them to talk about what's going on in their country and in their continent and what we are all trying to do. It's another way to think about it, because otherwise, when I go back to Africa and people are asking me, okay, you're doing this with this, you're doing this, and we hear all that thing, but what about us here? And what struck me during the Live Aid was, it's done for the future of the children of Africa, but there's no media, local media of any country in Africa that can relate that event to the youth of the country, for the youth to finally realize that they are not alone in the mess that they think that they are, or those children that we are giving medicine to for HIV and AIDS. They need to feel like somehow somebody that they can relate to is representing them for our cause to really be powerful.
Are there questions? Yes, back there.
My name is Diane Tober. I'm with the Unique Zan Foundation promoting health and literacy for women in the Middle East. And I just wanted to follow up on the comment that Angélique made in her presentation about engaging the local communities. I did my work in Iran with Afghan refugees, and the Iranian people couldn't understand why the Afghan refugees didn't want the services that were being provided to them. Why wouldn't they follow family planning, for instance? Why wouldn't they separate the animals from the human areas? And at my suggestion, they actually engaged the Afghan community to come in and work in the health centers and learn, and then go back to their communities and provide the education there. It's absolutely essential, I believe, for everybody who's providing funding to other countries, whether it be Africa, Afghanistan, wherever, that the local communities are engaged, and you ask them what they think they need, and then help them figure out the solutions. Otherwise, everything else will not work, because you have to have the communities.
Absolutely. I don't think that was a question.
It was not a question, but it was a good remark.
It was a great comment. Christine, back there.
Dan, thank you. I think we were all just so moved and delighted and angered, perhaps, and impressed by the fabulous presentation. And I'm wondering whether, taking a chapter from the Al Gore situation, whether you're training other trainers to tell your story, the story of sensible priorities around the country, particularly maybe using young unemployed comedians or others.
Yeah, thanks. We are starting to do that. You know, we've made a online version of the Oreo demonstration, which is an animation that's been downloaded about 2 million times, and we also have a giant version of it that goes around on a flatbed truck using a 12-foot high stack of Oreos. And we just came up with a home Oreo demonstration kit that we just did a training video for that we're starting to send out. So yeah, we are starting to do that, and yes, that is really important. I actually just did a training with a guy who owns a chain of restaurants in New Hampshire that wants to go around and do this presentation for local Rotary clubs.
Where is it online?
It's online at truemajority.org/Oreos.
If you tell children they can eat the Oreos after giving the demonstration, then you'll get some very keen volunteers.
We have time for a couple more questions. Well, I'll take the moderator's prerogative.
There's one person.
Where?
There.
Oh, okay, back there.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Adams, and I'm in Africa for the last 5 years at the West Africa Trade Hub currently. And I'm thrilled with the product-led promotion and activities, because my fundamental job is exporting products from Africa. I'm also thrilled with the Oreo demonstration. And what I would love to see, and I know it's really hard to do for companies in the US that are targeting primetime audiences, that are targeting prime product purchasing for consumers, is to increase the awareness of the origin of the fabrication of the products in general, and to try and drive an increase of demand on the consumer side for products with a specific origin, with real information about where it's produced. One product area that we talk a lot about is cashews. A quarter of the world's cashews are produced in Africa. 90% of them are processed in India. If we could only get more of those cashews processed in Africa, they're still eaten in the US and Europe, but it's just a matter of awareness. So I'd like to see if you have any comments about that.
Bobby?
From here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. I think the trick of it a little bit is that if there's no reason for them to do that, they won't. I mean, it's just a hard fact. So the reason that Motorola made the boxes is because they were involved in a branding promotion that made it make sense for them. So I've found that it's hard to get people to do things if they feel it's a drag or boring, or to use the idea of the Oreos, if you're not eating an Oreo. You really got to, kind of get at them that way and create branded demand for things, branded demand. I forgot to mention that Red made $25 million in the 5 or 6 months it's been in business, which puts it, I think, 8th on the list of global fund contributors. China gave $2 million last year. Red gave $25 million. So it bigger than Ireland also. I wouldn't say if Bono were here, but it's true. So it's important, to create in the consumer culture. There's some people who say, oh, it's a terrible thing that people are buying stuff, but it's a terrible thing that people don't have the medicine, that the fund, when it goes to governments to ask for the gigantic grants, the $700 million from the United States, can't say. I mean, I've shown all this stuff, as I'm sure you all can imagine, as Bono has, and as our team in Washington have, and as our team in London have, shown all this stuff to many political leaders. And as I am a small-time political leader in Santa Monica, I can tell you that when you see a thing like that, as a political leader, you go, maybe there are some votes in this thing.
I mean, I think that it's so important. I think that thing about not being worthy is
so important.
The Sainsbury's, our huge supermarket, wanted to push forward the concept of fair trade, but they decided to do it during the 5-week approach to Red Nose Day because people were in that mood, were loosened up as far as it, and so they could suddenly tell people, actually, these are fair trade bananas, this is new fair trade stuff that you didn't realize, it's not just coffee. But they used us as the way, I mean, famously in this country, you had Paul Newman, he used his face to raise money. And I think the thing is not to say we're a good cause and therefore please do it for that reason. Say we're a good cause with a fantastic marketing opportunity for it.
Yeah, I have one question. I have one question that I've always been asking since I can understand all we all have been talking about, is how much is worth a life of a human being? If we answer that question, we're going to move forward, because everything comes to the benefit, the profit of this and that. When we are making business, where is the value that we cherish? When any child is born in this world, whoever bring a child to this world with his both hands filled with millions of dollars? None. And the thing that we are facing is that money and profit is such a big issue everywhere to everybody that it comes to take decisions that jeopardize millions of lives a long way. And you and I, we all here sitting down here, trying to figure out how we're going to really find a solution to heal those people. Why can't we all take here resolution where we will put the pressure on our leaders for them to stop just financing corruption in Africa and empower the people within the country to help us all doing what we are doing in a better way, for money not to be lost at all.
Well, I feel where you're coming from, but I can tell you the thing that made me mad about Ben's presentation, I don't know how many of you here are my age, but without the cleverness, I heard that presentation when I was a kid.
Well, that's
okay. So this is. Let me just finish for 1 second, okay. Sally. This is a very hard fact of life. That defense budget in the United States has been at that proportion for 45 years that I've been alive. So it's very important to figure out a way, a new way to adjust the attitude that has failed. We're all American, some of us Americans in this room, we have failed to affect the size of that budget for my entire life. From George McGovern and my dad, right on down through Ed Markey and my Uncle Teddy and everybody, that thing continues to roll along at that level. So you got to figure out a way, and maybe what you're saying is the spiritual path of conceiving the value of a human life, which is, you know, a fantastic thing. But all I would say is that to get Richard the money to buy, this is the little Gap bracelet where the little pill is here as a symbol of the ARV that the Global Fund buys and distributes to people. And I've just been myself amazed in wearing this thing that people say to me, I say, that's the symbol of the medicine. They go, oh, normal people who read, you know, the New York Times, look at it and go, oh, you take that and you don't have AIDS anymore?
Well, we've got
How many of those do you take?
Go.
I'm just saying, that level of communication to people, ordinary people, that's what that is, that Magic Johnson takes this twice a day. Then they go, oh, really? And you go, yeah. And that's what we're doing, and it costs this amount of money. Then you have people and they feel they're effective. They can buy a little leather bracelet at the Gap for $10, and thereby they bought medicine for a person. That's good. They feel like that's good. I'm connected to that person. They see the photos of the people who they're connecting to, the films that Richard is going to put on American Idol. You show people these are human beings. You know, I mean, I'm going to tell one other thing. We tested, instead of the word red, we tested a name for this campaign, which was Same As Us. Same as us. It came to us from a... Well, okay, you know why? Okay, we loved it. Bono, we were like, that's it. It came from a very well-known hip-hop star in America. We thought it's great. We tested it. It was terrible. You know why? People didn't feel that the African people were the same as us. They wanted to help them, but they didn't believe the same idea.
I know.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. You would not have thought that, but that's what, to turn the thing, you need that. Someone's telling me, got to go. I'm out. Bye.
Well, we've come to the end, but I don't want to leave us on a note like that. I want to leave us on a high note, because this is an extraordinary group of people here who are really trying to bring us all into the fray. And just before he died, John Gardner wondered aloud to himself why, when he engaged with so many bright people all over the world every day, so many of them had chosen to step aside. Who gave you permission to step aside, he said. Well, these are 4 people who have erased that permission. We are all in this together. Thank you so much for an incredible panel.